my initial goal was to actually look at legislating law that would require physical castration. Currently, we do have chemical castration in effect. And there were a lot of questions that came up around the Louisiana Department of Corrections. I say a lot, but a few questions in terms of what the process are, what's happening now. Um, did we have instances where individuals were being chemically castrated, and what's happening as it relates to when folks are transitioning out, et cetera, et cetera. So we have the Louisiana Department of Corrections with us today, and we're going to ask that you come to the table, and some of the questions that were asked at the last meeting, we are going to ask them now. So we have Jonathan Vinning.
It's Vining.
Vining, okay. And Jennifer Bush. I have it right? Okay. Okay, great. So if you would, just for the record, introduce yourself. If you can just kind of start off telling us a little bit what's happening now as it relates to those who have sexual crimes and who are incarcerated, and what happens with them when they have served their time. What's that process in terms of their release, and what happens after that? So, ladies first, or?
Fine. So I'm Jonathan Vining. I'm the General Counsel for the Department of Public Safety and Corrections. This is Jennifer Bush, who is
Assistant Director.
She's the one I always call Probation and Parole. She knows everything.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why she's here today. So we're not. I won't say that we're entirely unprepared for this, but it was kind of a late phone call yesterday when we were told to come, and I guess we kind of just really found out maybe what you wanted to discuss this morning, but we have talked to a couple of people, both of us, at least as far as if the question is about the chemical castration.
Yes, that's one question.
We do have a regulation on it. It was emailed to me, and I'm happy to send it to you. I can send it now or as soon as this is done so that you can see it, but at least, and I'm getting ready to defer to Jennifer, but as far as it having actually been done, from talking to our Deputy Director of P&P and our Nursing Director, Stacy Rodriguez, this morning, they are only aware of a couple of instances where it has actually been done, and it's been court-ordered as part of somebody's, I guess, release. In other words, if they wanted to release, they had to start this process, and they had to continue it if they wanted to basically stay on good terms with their conditions of release. I don't have the information exactly on those individuals, but it won't be very difficult to pull because there haven't been that many of them, but we can provide that to you. And I guess, to be honest, I don't know that I have much more to say about it than that, other than that I know it needs to be court ordered, and we've never gotten to a point where it's been court ordered and somebody said no. And I don't know that I can really answer what would happen in that scenario because it hasn't arisen to my knowledge.
Okay.
But I mean, having said that, I bet Jennifer will probably be able to answer your questions better than I can, especially as far as it comes to supervision and things of that nature, but whatever else you have.
Okay.
We'll do our best.
Okay, well, great, thank you. So at least there have been some, because we were under the impression that probably there had not been any, but there have been some, and they were court ordered, and they were upon conditions of them being released.
Yes, ma'am, that is my understanding from talking to our nursing director this morning. Now, it's possible that I may get back to you later today and say we're slightly wrong, but that is my understanding. Yes,
Okay, okay, all right, Dan. And so if you can give us that information and like how many folks that it is, if y'all have had any issues, right? Evidently, probably not, but if you have, we'd like to know that information as well. In terms of them following through, because one of the things that you said is they continue, so it's like a step process, like you do one thing, then you have to do something else, or in terms of the chemical piece.
Jennifer can probably address that better, but I would almost think of it as like a term of like a condition of release, and that you have all these things you have to do, while you're on supervision. Am I saying that right, or?
So it is my understanding
Can
that
you
the question.
pull the mic? Yes.
Okay, is that better?
Yeah, that's much better.
It is my understanding that the question is the process of the chemical castration itself,
That's one of the
like
questions.
multi-steps.
Yes.
I'm
Is
not
it
I'm not aware of
multi-steps?
that.
Okay.
And I think something was said that might have had that implication, and I will be frank, I'm not aware of any chemical castration cases. I know that it's on the books. I'm just not aware of any cases that we have, that I can confirm,
Okay.
that have gone through the process. I think the process might be multi-step instead of
Okay.
just one time, but I'm not sure. Hypothetically, if that were an order from the court, I'm sure that the Office of Division of Probation and Parole would ensure compliance. How that looks, I'm not sure. I don't know if they would be returned to custody if they did not finish the process. But we can definitely do some more research on that piece for you.
Yes, we would like to know, because one of the things that came out in the last discussion was what happens when individuals are released, and the process of helping them, following them, a curriculum, I think that may be designed that they participate in. And if I remember correctly, I want to say that they go once a month, maybe for 2 hours or something to that effect. But it wasn't that rigorous, and just the monitoring. I think that there's just logistically, seemingly because of funding issues, maybe some problems in that area. But you can speak to that if I'm incorrect.
So we do have sex offender treatment. It is required for any registered sex offender on probation and parole in the state of Louisiana. So they are required to meet with a treatment provider. It's at least once a month. Some providers may increase the classes required, but that is a condition of supervision for a sex offender. And now what they discuss, and I'm sure it varies depending on the provider itself, but that is a requirement. And if they do not comply with sex offender treatment without valid reason, then they are returned to the parole board or to court to address those violations.
And one of the other things that was mentioned was how the length, like it's like for as long as they live, they have to continue to come. And some folks felt that they didn't know how effective that was, because it just gets to a point where it's just kind of continuously being repetitive, and they don't know if they're really retaining anything and more, because it's like they've learned or they have grasped everything that can be taught in that arena. So is that true to some degree?
Well, in general, they never graduate. I think I've personally only aware of less than a handful of offenders who have received letters of completion from their sex offender providers. It is my understanding that the ideology is that they cannot ever be cured, that they can be treated, and that's why consistent treatment for the remainder of their period of supervision. Once they're off of probation or parole, we don't have any authority over them after that, but I think ideally they would probably be on or receiving treatment forever.
And that treatment that they receive, are they responsible for paying for that?
Yes, they are,
Okay.
which can be very pricey.
And so this is continuous, correct?
Yes,
And if they don't participate, then they can end up back,
correct.
and it's very pricey.
It can be.
And I think those were some of the issues and some of the things that were coming up in terms of, not saying making it easy, but we're trying to come up with a more robust system that can really help really address the issues and the concerns, and to really be kind of look at how do we help to really rehabilitate. Now, I guess, I've heard a lot of different discussion as it relates to whether or not a person can be rehabilitated, and you just said that they can. And I hope that maybe we have our psychologists here who can speak to that, because that's been, I think, for some folks, just a difference of opinion, I guess. But in your opinion, have y'all seen, well, you just said only a few people have graduated.
Right, and there's usually extenuating circumstances with those, maybe their age and their health. Maybe the provider has dealt with them for many years, didn't see any major red flags, and their health had deteriorated so that they didn't feel that they would be a threat anymore.
Okay.
So they're very few and far between, and they usually have major extenuating circumstances around it, in my experience.
So let me ask you this question. What are some recommendations that you guys believe can be done to make this system a little bit better, or make it better in terms of coming out with the outcomes of what we're really all looking for, and trying to ensure that these people are not repeating offenses, especially against children? Are there any recommendations that you guys have, or things that you see that can change, that can be changed, that would make it better?
Not prepared to answer that question today. It's so complicated. I mean, people are people, and even if we supervise them very strictly, we're not there 24/7. And so I know personally, I've supervised many people that gave me no issue at all, and they reoffend and commit new crimes. So it's hard to...
When you say new crimes, is it in the same venue, or is this something totally like a different crime, like something totally different that just violated?
It could be new
probation.
crimes. It could be new crimes similar to what they already have previously been convicted of, or different. But just I guess my point is, probation and parole, the treatment providers, we can't be around them 24/7. And human beings are complex creatures, and there are times that no matter what we do, I'm not sure that we can always prevent. So I was not prepared to appropriately answer that question today.
So let me ask you a little bit differently. What gaps do you see that could possibly be fixed as it relates to, are there funding issues, or there are things of that sort that could help maybe a little bit in terms of, I'm just saying this, minimizing the caseload or whatever, or is there something else that we can add in terms of programming pieces that may help?
Funding is always an issue. The offenders are responsible for paying for their own treatment. Some have the means, some do not.
And if they don't, then if they don't and they tell you that they don't, what happens then? Is there any leniency or that you guys are able to provide? There
is some, but at the end of the day, that's a requirement, and they must comply. Bigger areas that have more treatment provider options, of course, are better. But if you live in a rural area, you have one provider around, and they're $200 a class. That's difficult.
I didn't ask that question. I'm glad you said that. So on average, is that how much it costs?
I've heard more 100 to 200, but I can't say with confidence that that's the average statewide.
Okay, that's all the questions I have at this point. Do y'all have any questions? No. Okay. Well, anything else that you would like to add, Mr. Viney?
No, ma'am. I was just going to say that, sorry, I wasn't being disrespectful. I was texting people while we were doing this to say, look, we need to pull this, and this. So we'll work on getting you the info on the couple that our nursing director thinks we've dealt with before on the chemical castration issue, and get you whatever information we can. And I'll send you our regulation on it, too. So. Okay.
Well, if y'all don't mind, could you just stick around for a little while? We're going to bring up the Attorney General's office, and maybe some things that he may have or add that maybe questions that maybe we might ask you to come back to see if you can answer those. All right. I appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Mr. Vining, or let's see, I'm not looking at your name. I'm sorry. Come back just really quickly. Is there anything that you guys think that we need to add to the resolution, or things that we need to make sure that we're looking at as we're doing the study? Is there anything that you guys see or would like to see is added that we consider in going forward?
I'll defer to Jennifer, but we probably need to talk to our boss first, and then we'll figure it out.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, let us talk
statement.
to Secretary LeBlanc, and
Okay,
we'll
that's
figure
fair.
it out from there. And then I'm going to get an email address from you to see where to send this information that I pull.
Okay, that sounds really good. So if y'all would circle back before we actually draft that, so that we can make sure that we have all the components that we need to add. Because when we started, I never thought about making sure that we had DOC at the table, but that became a major component. And there may be some things that you guys can add that were missing that we need to take a look at, so that we can strengthen the system.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Well,